So I think I figured out where neurological disease comes from. Well, yeah, you could say prescription drugs that are about controlling somebody's attention, um, their focus, the recreational side of the drugs, like LSD, I guess heroin, or cocaine, cannabis, yes. And then why the rise in autism? See, now what makes a specific virus very targeted to cause neurological symptoms, and then what causes certain organs of the body to undergo cancer and be afflicted with that type of trauma? Trauma all around. And so it doesn't surprise me that, yeah, you get a lot of amazing innovation from trauma. Like back in the 1960s, and all the LSD and all the artists, Janis Joplin, all the 1960s musicians and everything. And then you get all the crazies like the Charles Mansons and the Jim Jones and all the different swamis and the gurus and the yogis. And then why it doesn't surprise me that we have an offshoot like the ayahuasca retreats and people doing the tantric sex. And we have the New Age movement and all of their different concoctions and meditation and the Reiki and all the different therapies, the drug therapies, the energy healing world using crystals. And so then now I figured out where all the brain cancers and neurological diseases, the autism, when someone does practice psychedelics, when you're practicing psychedelics, you're doing kinetic energy to your brain. And so when you're doing cannabis, yeah, you're messing with your brain, as well as other hormones. When you're doing any kind of, even a prescription drug, let's say Adderall for a child who has attention deficit, or a college student who wants to focus more on their college work, and so they're taking their kids' prescription medication to be more focused so they can get through their classes. And then you see the rise in MS, you see the rise in autism, you see the rise in brain cancers. It doesn't surprise me that a lot of the innovation, yeah, came out of the 1960s. And so then you have the baby boomers who were all the hippie, right? And they're very smart. Oh yeah, I was raised by the silent generation. They, how much psychedelics did they do in cannabis? I couldn't tell you. But I came upon my gifts and talents through nurture versus nature, okay, which means I took on aspects of their programming as well as was taught by, my parents who came out of the 1960s, 1970s, and, all the different experimental stuff. And then you're looking like, oh, Charles Manson. When I listened to Charles Manson, he came out of the 1960s, 1950s, whatever. Even though he was psychotic and he had major followers, but he was actually really smart. Like, he was super smart. And then you figure out, well, where did the blood type A and B come from? Oh yeah, the kinetic energy to the brain. They hold certain surface marker antigen, the biomarkers, that gave them the brain activity. Okay, so now you see where all these different cancers come from, because you can direct the kinetic energy through drugs, through psychedelics. And they were doing many experiments back in the 1960s, in the 1950s. That's where all the MK Ultra, the grooming of the child stars like Shirley Temple, Marilyn Monroe, any other star you've heard about, stuff like Kathy O'Brien, the whole MK Ultra stuff. Okay, so we know those types of things happened way back then. And then it floats residually through the genetic makeup of someone, and they have kids, and these kids are inheriting some of their parents' like extremely smart genes, but also the predispositions of autism, of MS, of diabetes, heart attacks, drugs, whatever. And so, because I was thinking like, well, what in the population, like I knew that antibiotics would cause certain allergies, but what would make a specific part of the body be afflicted by a cancer, by a neurological disease. And they realize, oh, that's right, kinetic energy, and there are some drugs that develop or activate major kinetic energy because of the T cells that are being produced to protect the body, but also the actual direct influence of the drug is directing towards specific hormones in your brain, whether it's a serotonin release, the endorphin, some kind of endorphin. I don't know all the different hormones in the brain. I can go Google it, but if you understand what these drugs do and what kind of hormonal release gives people the euphoria, the pleasure, and then you realize, and that's why they use some of these psychedelics for drug therapies. When someone is depressed, then you release the floodgates. Now they're all happy, but then when that is constantly, when you have those drugs constantly swimming through your body, and you're causing T cells and B cells to defend, as well as the direct attack or the direct influence, then you're causing a lot of activity in those areas, of which then eventually they do break down. And so that makes a lot of sense. And so yes, you can get extreme amounts of innovation. That's where all this tech industry came from. It was from out of the 1960s. There was stuff in the 1950s, but they really honed in and strategically used the drugs to enhance the prototypes, which is why Bill Gates was so smart, which is why Mark Zuckerberg extremely smart. You don't know what kind of drug therapies are on. You know why Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, and all the different physicists of the day, they understood the use of drugs to enhance certain abilities, and which why people revere and worship certain people, because they were under certain drugs that the main population didn't have access to or knew that existed. Because when you're doing secret experiments, under, the guise of top secret, type of stuff, then you think that this God or this person who's so smart is like an anomaly, when no, he's just been bioengineered through drug therapy. And that's why my mom said, better life through chemistry. And I'm going to answer my husband's phone. But now you get it. All right, bye. And so that's why my mom said, better life through chemistry. Because you can take any type of drug that has specific algorithms, and you can have it target towards something in the brain and cause streamlines of memories and easier ways of connectivity. And then bam, you put math, English, science, social studies, and all the different subject matters, and you program the person, and they get it that quickly, and they retain the information, and they can spit out their hypothesis, spit out whatever, as long as their bodies can keep up with the competition and keep up with what it takes to complete your thesis or something, if you're going for a doctorate. And so that's why drugs have been used, is because people really are trying to be, they're competing with those that are also under the same type of therapies and with competitive genetics. And so, I wouldn't be too upset that you didn't get access to those things, but now you have the ability to redirect all the programming in your body, and you can fill your mind with intellectual stuff, and you'll have the retention because you'll be exposed to all the viruses. See, all the viruses carry the innovation. That's what's so amazing. That's what has gotten me smarter. I already had stuff within me because of my nature and nurture, but I took on the intelligence of my community. And there's a lot of intelligence in Ohio, and everything that I picked up in California, and everywhere I went along the way, from China to Hawaii to Washington to wherever, Mississippi, I picked up so much data from different places, meeting different people. I had a very diverse background as far as my social lifestyle for many years. And so when someone is so homogenized, has never left their state or left their little town, they don't have a very broad view of the world. And so any new information, they're just be like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to take on that information. And so you almost have to open yourself up, literally. Now you'll be exposed to all the viruses from around the world, and they will have so much amazing programming that you'll take on, and you don't have to die from the predispositions, because you'll know how to feed the energy. You'll know how to release any excess energy. And so, yeah, if you practice a lot of different psychedelics or have practiced it in the past, and you already know that there's probably predispositions, and if you don't know there's predispositions in your family and you've done a lot of drugs like psychedelics, neurological stuff, there's going to be some shit in the future when it comes to that. Very smart people who are intellectually, scientifically, very left-brained, they will deal with some kind of condition in the future because the amount of brain power that they are producing on a day-by-day basis for 20, 30 years. And when people start breaking down, they start getting the indicators of MS or some kind of autoimmune disorder, you know that that is because of the programming that they either underwent through drug therapy, and people don't tell you everything, and also inheriting certain genetic predispositions from parents who may have been doing that kind of stuff. And so now you have a chance to redirect where you don't have to suffer from neurological diseases because of either what you've done in the past or what you inherited from your parents or what you were exposed to because of your associations. And so now I freaking get it. And so, no, better life through chemistry, yeah, but you better be able to recoup those resources that have been used so much. But that's why we have such an amazing society that's very advanced, even though it's not as advanced as it could be, but it's more advanced than it has been. And that's because of the innovation of people who did undergo so many different biomolecular programming, kinetic energy, using different elements that then are called different drugs. And yeah, the 1960s, that's why the music was so amazing in the 1960s, because of all the acid trips and the LSD and the cannabis and all the sex. And it was just like, wow, that was the hub of the turning point of our advancement technologically. Okay. And so that makes a lot of sense. All right, bye.